Do I stay in my house? Do I sell my house? Or do I downsize? For some of the clients I sit down with at retirement age, the house they're living in is worth more than their 401k, their IRA, and every taxable investment account they've built up along the way, all added together. That's why the question of what do I do with that house tends to be one of the biggest financial decisions of their retirement. And in 2026, that question lands a little differently than it has in years past. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the 3 main paths most retirees consider. You can stay in the home you're in, downsize to something smaller and use the difference, or tap into your home's equity through what's called a reverse mortgage. We'll cover what each one actually looks like, who each one tends to fit, and the math you should be running before you make the decision. Now, before we get into the 3 paths, let me give you some context on what's happening in the market right now. As of mid-2026, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate is sitting around 6.5%. That's down a bit from the peaks of a couple of years ago, but it's still well above the 3 to 4% rates many of you locked in during the early 2020s. The median U.S. home sale price is around $403,000, though that varies dramatically by region. Some markets in the Sun Belt have actually softened over the last year. Some markets in the Midwest and the Northeast have held firm or even appreciated a bit. What this means in practical terms is that the math behind each of these 3 options has shifted from what it would have been even 3 years ago. The timing window matters. Okay, now let's start with the first option, which is staying in the home you're already in. For many of my clients, this is the right answer. They've raised their families there, the mortgage is paid off or close to paid off, the community is theirs, and the house with a few thoughtful updates can carry them comfortably through retirement. When clients choose this path, the conversation we usually have is about aging in place. We help them allocate funds towards updates that make the home work for the next phase of life. Kitchens that are easier to use, bathrooms with better accessibility, maybe a chairlift down the road if there are stairs, or a first floor primary bedroom if the layout allows for it. I love seeing the pictures clients send afterwards and the smiles on their faces when they show us. The home that raised their kids gets a second life as the home that carries them through retirement. The second path is downsizing. Now, this tends to fit clients who want less house to manage, less upkeep, less property to maintain, more time and energy for travel, family, and the things they've been wanting to do for years. Downsizing has another benefit that often gets overlooked. The difference between what you sell your current home for and what you spend on the smaller one becomes a meaningful piece of capital. For some clients, that becomes enough to fund years of additional travel or experiences. For others, it's enough to be a real cushion against future healthcare costs. All right, story time. I've worked with one couple for almost 2 decades who went through this exact decision a few years back. They had a beautiful home. I can attest to that. I've been there myself. And it wasn't an easy decision to downsize because of all the memories they'd built in that house with their kids and their grandkids. But they ultimately decided it was time. They downsized to a condo that required much less upkeep, both inside and out. The change gave them more freedom and more flexibility. And now they spend 2 to 3 months of every year in Alabama, where they've built up a community of friends they look forward to seeing each season. The third path is the one most people understand the least. It's called a reverse mortgage. A reverse mortgage lets you convert a portion of your home's equity into cash without selling the home and without making monthly mortgage payments to a bank. The most common version is called an HECM, which stands for Home Equity Conversion Mortgage. It's insured by the federal government. And here's how it works at a high level. The first is you have to be at least 62 years old, and the home has to be your primary residence. The lender pays you either as a lump sum, a line of credit you can draw from over time, monthly payments, or some combination of those. You keep living in the home, you're still responsible for property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. The loan doesn't have to be repaid until you sell the home, move out permanently, or pass away. At that point, the loan is typically settled out of the sale of the home itself. In 2026, the maximum amount of home value the program will consider is just over $1.2 million. Though most borrowers don't access the full ceiling. Your actual proceeds depend on your age, your current interest rates, and your home's appraised value. Reverse mortgages have a complicated reputation, and not all of it is fair. There have been some bad actors in this space historically, which is why the federal program now requires HUD-approved counseling before you can close on one. For the right person in the right situation, a reverse mortgage can be a useful tool. There are also situations where it creates real problems down the road, which is why I always tell clients to bring me into the conversation before signing anything. That's where I bring in my banking knowledge. I started as a personal banker. So how do you decide between the three? Here are a few questions I work through with clients. First, what does your retirement income look like without touching the house? If your portfolio, Social Security, any pensions cover your lifestyle comfortably, the house becomes more of a preference decision than a necessity decision. Second, what's the upkeep situation? A house with stairs, a large yard, and aging systems creates more friction every year. Sometimes the decision to downsize is driven less by money and more by energy. Third, do you have the legacy goals? If passing the house to your kids matters to you, that changes the conversation in a meaningful way. If the kids don't want the house or live across the country, that opens up different options. Fourth, what does your local housing market look like? In some areas, the equity you'd unlock from selling could fund a decade of additional travel. Well, that sounds nice. In other areas, the math is much tighter. The right answer is the one that fits your actual situation, not the one that worked for your neighbor. Look, your house is one of your biggest assets. If you're approaching retirement or already there and the question of what to do with your home is weighing on you, that's exactly the kind of conversation that we have all the time. You can schedule a no-cost, no-obligation meeting with us at the link below. We'll model what your retirement looks like under each of the three scenarios we walked through today, and we'll talk through which one fits your goals, your income picture, and what's most important to you about your home. The house you've lived in for decades carries both financial and emotional weight in your retirement, and the goal is making sure the decision you make reflects both pieces. Thanks for watching, and remember, peace of mind is built on purpose.
We want to help be your guide along the way about how to, access your money and the best places to get it with the ups and downs, and we want to help you to take advantage of those different market cycles. So if that's what you're looking for, please reach out to us.